For this segment, let's everybody grab our bow bar and our resistance training kit, and let's anchor it to a low anchor point. Squat wide press for this exercise. So you can see I'm combining a squat with a wide chest press, holding the bow bar from the wide zone with your elbows out. Now you want to make sure as you're pressing, your elbows are roughly the same height as your shoulders, and we're just pumping these out. Your turn. Working some T-rows for this exercise. So you want to make sure you're holding the wide zone as far as your hand position on the bow is concerned, and you want to make sure you pull back with your elbows nice and high. You want to have them at roughly shoulder height. Extend all the way. So let's do full range movement. So you want to push all the way back into a T and then release until you've got soft straight arms. You can see we're using a lunge stance to keep a nice sturdy lower body. Your turn. Overhead triceps extensions for this exercise, guys. And you want to make sure your elbows are by your ears and you're holding the narrow zone in your bow. So you want to make sure you're pushing straight up without any movement in your elbows. Your turn. Working some basic biceps curls from a narrow zone position. So what we want to do with this one is just make sure your elbows are stationary and they're in front of you, and the whole movement is coming from your elbows to your hand, which basically means your forearms and your biceps doing all the work. You can see we've got a nice sturdy base as well. So using a front stance or a lunge stance is going to keep you nice and heavy. Your turn to try this one. Shoulder presses for this exercise. What we want to do is we want to hold the bow bar in its wide zone, and you want to make sure you're just bringing the arrow down to your chest and pushing straight up. You want to make sure your elbows are out and you're holding a lunge stance for this one. Your turn. Squat elbow strikes for this exercise. So you can see, guys, that we're dropping down into some squats from roughly shoulder width, maybe slightly wider if you like, and we're twisting into those high elbow strikes. Now the elbow strikes should be at roughly face height, and extend your arms back out before you go into the next one. Alternate from left to right. Your turn to try the exercise. Alright, we're going to work some mid-grip presses for this exercise, guys. So what we've got to do is we've got to hold the mid-zone of the bow bar. And you want to make sure your elbows are tucked in by your ribs and you're pushing straight. Now, your stance is a front stance or a lunge stance so that you've got a nice heavy base and you can just pump them out. Your turn. Working some bent over rows for this exercise. So you can see that we're holding a fairly wide squat stance and we're leaning forward with a neutral spine. Now you want to make sure you're holding the mid zone of the bow bar and pulling straight back towards your belly button. You want to make sure your elbows are tucked in as you do it. Your turn. Alright, working some snatch squats for this one. So you want to make sure you're holding a traditional squat pose. So you want to make sure your feet are at shoulder width or marginally wider. You want to drop down with your knees right on top of your toes, but you want to hold that snatch position so you can see that our arms are staying over our heads throughout the whole exercise. Your turn. Alright, sitting down into the isometric chair for this exercise. You can see two different ways of doing it. So I'm basically just holding the bar in front of me, arms soft straight, but retaining that nice chair pose. You can see Sabina's doing it slightly different to myself. She's actually got the bar on the back of her neck. That's another way of holding it. So do the one you're more comfortable with. Your turn. Alright, combining a squat with a calves raise for this exercise, guys. So you can see we've got the bow bar behind our necks, and that's a nice supported position. So if you're used to doing squats with a barbell, this will be natural for you. We're going to lift up into a calves raise when you reach the top of the squat. And we're just going to pump these out. Working some alternate courtesy lunges with this one. So we're alternating from the left side to right side. These are nice lengthy lunges, but you're doing them at 45 degrees. So we want more emphasis on the outer glutes. Your arms are remaining soft straight the whole time. Your turn to try it. Working some stepping lunges for this exercise, guys. So you can see we're stepping back into a lunge and then stepping forward into a lunge as well, and working on that same side for a whole set. Now, at the end of the set, we're going to switch and work the other side as well. You've got to make sure you keep your lunges nice and lengthy and keep them at roughly shoulder width. Your turn. Working some alternate lunges for this exercise. So you want to make sure you've got nice lengthy lunges at shoulder width and just dropping straight back from left to right, doing this alternately. Now you want to make sure you keep your spine nice and neutral, and you want to try and keep your front leg fairly vertical throughout the exercise. So as you drop down, there should be a vertical line from your knee to your ankle. Arms remain soft straight. Your turn. Working some pullovers into triceps extensions. So you can see full range pullover with the elbows nice and straight. And then when we get to the bottom of the exercise, you're doing your triceps extensions with your elbows tucked in by your side. Just move from one exercise straight to the other. Pump them out. Your turn. Working some tabletop crunches for this exercise. So just allowing the bow bar to rest on your chest and you're holding the narrow zone with your hands. You can see I'm holding a perfect tabletop and you want to make sure you keep that in place throughout the whole set. Alright, your turn to try this one. Decline chest presses for this exercise. Now, you want to make sure that your head is lifted and your knees are nice and bent. We're going to hold the bow bar at the wide zone, and as you're dropping down, you want to create a straight line from shoulder to shoulder. Push at 45 degrees. Your turn to try this one. Working some Pilates hundreds for this one. So what you want to do is you want to make sure your head's lifted, your legs are nice and straight so they're not in a typical tabletop as you would when you're normally performing this exercise. Now we just want to make sure we're just pushing up and down and just keeping the consistency throughout the set. Your turn to try it. Okay, working some oblique crunches for this exercise. So basically this is just like doing an abs crunch, except your knees are lying flat, pointing out on one side. So we're going to hit one side for one set, and then we're going to hit the other side for the next. All you've got to do is just make sure your arms are rested on your chest and just really focusing on squeezing those abs and obliques. Your turn. Okay guys, this one's a tough one. It's tabletop crunches, but not the way you would normally do it. So what the bow bar is doing right now is it's pulling on your legs, so it's forcing you to engage your lower abs whilst you're crunching and working your upper abs. Quite a difficult exercise. Let's get you to try this one. Bow tucks for this exercise. So you just want to make sure you've got the grooves of the bow just at your thighs or just above your knees, and you're going to pull into a tuck with it. Now you can see I'm using my hands at the end of it just to balance the bow out. If you're finding this exercise quite difficult, you can actually hold onto the bow full time for support. You can see I've got my head up so that my back's protected, and I'm extending my legs right out. Your turn to try it. Basic lying biceps curls for this exercise. So you want to make sure your elbows are glued to your ribs and they're staying stationary the whole time. So you can see my elbows are not moving. I've lifted my head to support my back, and I've got my knees bent as well. Now you don't want to have your knees bent too much because you want to make sure you're leaving enough range of movement for your biceps curls, but keep them bent in order to support your back. Let's get you to try this exercise. Lying front delts raise for this exercise. Now, I'm doing this one from a wide zone, which is the wide part of the bow, but if you prefer to do it from a narrow zone, then that's okay as well. You can see my arms are soft straight and it's full range of movement. Head's rested and my knees are bent. Your turn to try this one. Working some lying leg curls for the next exercise. Now this one's a really good one for your hamstrings. You want to make sure you start off with ample tension on the bow and your Achilles are just at the grooves of the bow. You can see Sabina's creating 90 degrees of movement, so you want to make sure you're doing the same thing. Drop your elbows underneath you for support and let's start pumping out some leg curls. Let's go. Working some pull downs for this exercise with an obliques tilt. So basically you're getting that pull down in all the way to the top of your chest, and then what you want to do is you want to tilt to one side, try and get your elbow to your ribs. Then we're going to let go, start from the beginning and then tilt in the opposite direction. Your turn. This one's a variation of the bow tucks exercise. I'm using my feet instead of using my thighs for this one. It's forcing me to get a little bit more action in the hips and just working through those lower abs. You can see I've lifted my head and shoulders for support, and I'm trying to pull my knees all the way to my chest, or as far as I can pull it, and then extending to straight legs. Let's get you to have a go at this one. Working some shoulder presses from a lying face down position. You can see my feet are off the ground, legs are nice and straight and toes are pointy, and this way I can engage my lower back whilst I'm doing my shoulder presses. Now for the shoulder presses, you want to make sure you're holding the wide zone of the bar and just pushing in a horizontal motion straight out until you've got soft straight arms, and then bringing it and resting it at the top of your chest. Your turn.
Well done for finishing your workout, guys. Please take a few minutes to stretch and cool your body down now.